In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I learned to tune by thinking less, and how you can build this skill for yourself and take the panic and guesswork out of tuning. Okay, so many people struggle with the tuning note, and I used to too. You know, I've noticed with a lot of students this sense of dread or overwhelm as they walk up to take the tuning note with the piano before playing a solo, or this kind of like frenetic tuning when the oboe gives the A, or, if you don't have an oboe in your band, like everybody's just kind of playing loud and hoping, but not really knowing whether they're in tune or not, and feeling like this is some sort of test or pass or fail, or, it just comes with a whole lot of stress. And stress and anxiety is probably the biggest barrier to learning how to tune, because you really need your mind to be listening and calm. And when we're all wound up about whether or not we can hear whether we're in tune, or if we're in tune, or if the piano is just tuned, I mean, there's so many reasons that people stress about tuning. But if we're all wound up about it, we really can't listen, and we really can't employ the skill set that we actually need in order to tune well. So lots of people are under the impression that, they just can't hear it. If you can't hear it, that's a problem with your skills. That's not like some sort of rule about you that can't be changed, okay? I used to not be able to hear it too. And then I trained my ears so that I could hear it. And everybody can train their ears so that they can hear it, okay? The problem is that most of the time we just don't have a clear idea of how to learn to train our ears. I always felt a lot of pressure from teachers or conductors, the situation, just play in tune. You just need to learn how to play in tune. But no clear explanation. How do we learn how to play in tune? So again, this just fueled the anxiety, and runaway thoughts are just the opposite of successful tuning. I tried all of the common methods. So listening for waves. This is when you play, your A against the piano or your A against the oboe, and you listen for beats or waves in the sound. Honestly, I have never found a lot of success with this. I don't really hear the beats that clearly, especially if I'm playing with an instrument that is a different timbre. I mean, with two flutes, yeah, you can hear the waves especially if you're in the third octave. It's never really helped me tune though, to try and make the waves go away. I feel like that's just guessing in either direction, and so it's just not as fast or as accurate. Matching pitches, and what I mean by this is like, um, you're just playing with another person and you just try and get everything to match. So maybe you're not listening for waves, but you're trying to play at the same time as, and both hold your note and see if you can get it to match. This is also really difficult. Certainly is something that we do in orchestra, in actual playing, but not with the tuning note. Okay, I'm going to show you how to tune with the tuning note, where we don't just kind of hold and wait for the match. Okay. Um, I put rolling in and rolling out here because I'm mostly talking about just little adjustments and things that we do as a strategy to bring it way out of tune and then bring it back in tune to help train the ear. Again, this isn't something that professional players do, because it's not very practical. I don't find it's a great way of training your ear, because you're doing a whole bunch of things with the flute that you wouldn't normally do on the flute anyways. So the way you're playing the flute's not practical. And then bending a pitch way out and bending it back in, I think that can be disorienting. And still, when you're really far out, maybe you can tell, but the closer you get to bringing it back in tune, then you're just kind of back to guessing again. So I haven't seen a lot of great success with a lot of precision in the intonation with that strategy. And then the last thing that I wrote here was just adjusting. And what this means is it's a strategy for tuning where we hear the tuning note, we play our note, and then we just adjust so that we're in tune. That's not actually tuning, that's adjusting. And you want to adjust when you're playing in the orchestra or with the piano and you can't take your flute down and move the head joint. You want to actually tune the instrument when you're tuning to the tuning note. The biggest thing that I want you to take from this video: a busy mind cannot listen. Tuning is all about listening. And so we want to get our mind to be quiet. We want to actually start learning how to listen and build our skill set from there. if you would like a copy of these slides, I'll be sharing this whole presentation and the slides in our free Fundamentally Flute community. All you have to do is click the link in the description to join. So, our starting steps. Tuning is a set of skills. And I think it's really important that we actually define what tuning is anyways. So, tuning is different to me than playing in tune. Playing in tune or having great intonation is something that happens in the action of playing. So here you're playing in the orchestra, you're playing with the piano, you have to play in tune. We all know that if we tune our tuning note, it is in no way a guarantee that the rest of the notes are going to come out in tune. We actually have to tune every single note. So then what's the point of the tuning note? Why would we just tune an A and then hope for the best with all the other notes, especially when they have different tendencies and stuff like that? Well, the reason being is tuning is really just to set up the flute in a way that makes it easier to play with whatever instrument we happen to be playing with. So, for example, if you're tuning up to a piano that was recently tuned, so maybe it's sitting a little bit higher, you want to have your flute set up in a way where your A is as close to the A on the piano as possible, because that just means that you're in the ballpark of where the piano is. It takes less adjusting for you to play the flute in tune if you get your A matching that piano. Your A, your B flat. I mean, you could tune a number of different notes. We just traditionally tune the A. But if we're lining up the A so that you're pretty close to the piano, then that relationship between, all of the notes on the piano is just easier. You could push your flute all the way in and play in tune. It's just a lot more work. You just have to adjust everything wildly then, because the flute is playing out of tune with itself, and you're probably going to be really, really sharp if you push in all the way. Same thing if you pull all the way out. Really, tuning is just about getting that flute positioned in a place where, okay, this is going to make it the easiest for me to do all the adjusting that I have to do when I play, which is a normal part of playing in tune. So that's what tuning is. It's the setup of the flute. It's finding the easiest position. That's why we don't have to get it 100% right either. If you get it really close, that's good enough. It's going to be easier to play in tune. Okay, because I know a lot of people get this anxiety oh, am I in tune? Am I in tune? Well, if you're pretty close, then if you're used to playing in tune, if you've practiced adjusting the flute, you worry less about getting it to that 100% perfect spot, because it's just the starting step of having great intonation. So the set of skills involved in tuning with the tuning note are this little list here. So we need to learn to listen, first of all. We want to listen to that A or that A minor chord sometimes piano plays. And then we want to be able to internalize that pitch. And what I mean by that is that you're listening to that A and then you're actually able to bring it into your mind and hold it in your mind. Just the way you would if you were in a choir, for example, and you're using a tuning fork to give the choir the first pitch. When the choir has a first pitch, they have to hold it in their mind until the performance actually begins. Okay? Then what you want to do when you have internalized that pitch, you want to go ahead and sing that pitch, just like a choir. Because this is how we're going to train the ears, train the mind. Once you're singing the pitch, you fully internalize it. Now you can produce it with your body. So it's now moved from wherever it was, the piano, oboe, into your body. You're able to sing it. The next step would be that you play that pitch on the flute right after you've sang it, right after you've internalized it. And as you play, you're going to compare the pitch that comes out of the flute to the pitch that you just sang without thinking. This again, these play, compare, this is a listening skill. Okay, so you want to have your mind nice and quiet for that. So in this video, we're going to specifically go over tuning with the piano. The first thing we need is a calm mind. Try not to approach the piano with a lot of anxiety about this, okay? We want a calm mind, quiet mind, so that we can actually listen, okay? And then you're going to go through the following steps. Okay, so here at the piano, I'm going to start just by listening to the A minor chord. This is the note that I'm really listening for. So I'm listening, and then I'm allowing a lot of silence in my mind, that note to kind of cue up. Right before you sing something, it just kind of appears there in your mind. You can sing it with your vocal cords. So now I've internalized the pitch. Now I'm just going to play some short notes on the flute. It's pretty close. I'm going to push in a little bit more so you can hear. You can hear with those short notes that the pitch is a little bit high. I'm going to try pulling it out too much so you can hear the difference there too. So it's pretty obvious that it's flat compared to what I had in my head. Okay, so now we're going to break down each individual step and give you an idea of what you could personally do in order to build on each one and develop this skill for yourself. So step 1, learn to calm your mind. This allows you to really listen. Okay, so some of the things I practice: meditation. This is a great way of learning how to calm your mind. Some of us, our mind is a little maybe busy for that to start, but meditation, there's tons of apps. Like I use a Headspace app on my phone, 5 minutes a day. You're just practicing quieting that mind so that you can get in a place where you can actually listen. Next, calming breathing. So I know in the fundamentally flute community that we have all these box breathing exercises. Calm breathing and bringing focus to the breath brings the focus out of your thoughts about whether or not you can play in tune. So it's another good way to approach starting to quiet that mind to get ready to actually build on this skill. You can bring your focus to the sound. So when you're listening to that A, you're really listening to that A. You cannot listen and think at the same time. So just choosing what you're going to focus on. Okay. And lastly, affirmations. So for anybody who really struggles with anxiety around the tuning, affirmations are great as long as you actually believe them. So you want to choose words that you can really get behind. One that I use with my students often is like, I am learning to play in tune, because we can really get behind the fact that we're learning. We don't want to say something like, I can play in tune perfectly, because it's probably just going to cause anxiety if you don't believe it. Okay. So something like, yes, I am learning to play in tune. Makes us feel a little bit better. We can approach the piano and we can start working on building this skill set out. Next, step 2. Okay. We want to learn how to internalize those pitches. If you have a piano at home, you can use a piano. You just play a note on the piano and you're really practicing listening to those pitches. Okay? Listening, bringing them into your mind, and then singing them, just like I did at the example at my piano. If you don't have a piano, you can just use a drone. I have like drone on my metronome or on my tuner. Well, my tuner and my metronome, they're all combined, so they can be drones on there. And then, if that edgy sort of beepy drone sound on your phone metronome is not for you, there's beautiful cello drones on Spotify as well that I sometimes use, where I can practice listening to those pitches, internalizing them. Then you want to sing them, okay? Just like in the video, but you want to take your time, okay? Try not to jump through all of this too quickly. Oh, I just realized my face is on the note there. Try not to jump through all of this too quickly, okay? This is more about what happens in the mind in between each step here than accomplishing each step. If you rush, that means your mind's busy. It's the listening that is the actual key here. And that part's invisible. You're not actually doing anything except listening. Step 3. Right now I need to move my face back down. Okay. When you're able to hold the pitch in your mind and sing it, Eventually you'll stop singing it, okay? But for the purpose of this, we're going to sing it. I don't always sing my tuning note anymore. That might be a bit weird in orchestra, but by all means, do it until you don't need to do it. So when you're able to hold that pitch in your mind, then you play it on the flute. You don't have to just do this with A. You can do this with any note. Maybe 2 to 5 minutes a day, you're going to practice this. Play a note, bring it to your mind, sing it, play it on the flute, compare. That's it. That's the steps. 2 minutes is enough. If you cannot hear it right away, whether or not you're in tune, you could use a recorder or a tuner to check. But I say that with many grains of salt, okay? If you're really listening, really internalizing, and then keeping that mind quiet while you wait to compare with what comes out of your flute, you should hear it right away. It should be almost an instantaneous, oh yes, I hear, I'm flat or sharp. The other tip is, sometimes you can listen to I call it like the aftertaste of the sound. That's not a thing, I know. But the end of the note, sometimes that little resonant tail on the note really can tell us. We hear the pitch a little bit more as we finish that note. So you can also draw your attention right to the end of your little note that you play on the flute if you're having trouble hearing exactly where that pitch is. Okay, so now we're going to go through some troubleshooting. Number one, I want to talk about, even though this could be hot, okay? This meaning a lot of people have different opinions about this, but I'm just going to own it, okay? Relying on a tuner in place of your skills. This is such a challenge. You know, if you're one of those people that has to play with a tuner on your stand all the time to know if you're in tune, please know tuning is a skill of listening. And if you're using a tuner, you're using a skill of looking, okay? If you have that tuner there and you're always sort of referencing it and double checking and making sure, oh, the tuner it's what I thought it was. It's what I thought it was. You really are obstructing growth in this area because, again, a quiet mind is a mind that listens, and you build trust with yourself by building that ability to listen and discern whether it's in tune in your own head or not. Okay, so I would not recommend playing with a tuner on a stand. Don't tune with a tuner and then tune with the piano. Pianos, they change with the weather. Sometimes they get tuned sharp. Sometimes they've never been tuned in a long time. You don't want to use a tuner for that. You really, really want to build the skills with your ears. Okay? Next problem. Sometimes people play comparison notes that are just too long. So I see students go up, pianist plays an A or the A minor chord, and then the student's just like holding this long A. If you hold your A for a long time, that internalized A in your mind, it's like smoke. It just dissipates. And the stronger A will override. Well, now you don't have an internalized point of reference anymore, and it goes back to one of those original strategies of just matching or guessing, which is not as accurate. Okay, so when I played my example earlier in the video, the notes are short. They need to stay short because that's where we can really hear clearly, oh, it was flat or sharp. If you're kind of holding and then analyzing, it's too long. Because remember, we're doing a quick comparison, okay? One thing I didn't put on here, but I will say, try and tune without vibrato. Because the vibrato is just a manipulation of the pitch anyways. You don't need that. That's like extra challenge. You just don't need, because again, we're not working on creating this beautiful resonant sound with vibrato. We're just making sure we set up the flute properly. There are going to be people who disagree with me, but I think the straight tone is better because then you just know sort of where the core of your sound is sitting and making it sit as close to the piano as you can. Alignment of the flute or head joint. This can be a problem. If you are, say, like these go together, alignment of the flute or head joint, if you're really, really sharp, so you're pushed in all the way, like, oh, I'm still sharp, or the opposite, you're pulled out all the way. No, you would be flat if you pushed in all the way. No, you'd be sharp. Never mind. Okay, it's late. Opposite's true. If you're pulled out tons and then it's still not low enough, you have an alignment problem. You have a fundamental problem. And that's something that you're going to need to solve away from these exercises. Okay, the flute is meant to be pulled out the head joint 1/8 to 1/4 inch. That's it. More than that, less than that, the flute stops really playing in tune with itself. So you want to start addressing that somehow else. Maybe the cork's in the wrong place, maybe the positioning is wrong, ear direction, something like that. Okay, your octaves are not in tune with themselves. So lots of time people will tune the octave A's. If your low register octave is sharp and your upper one is flat, it's also a sign. It's an alignment issue. It's a fundamental issue. This is not an ears and tuning issue. And then adjusting the comparison note. So we already talked about this, but this is that challenge of understanding the difference between quickly adjusting to match in the moment. You want to do that when you're playing, of course, all the time. This is especially front of mind for me when I'm playing piccolo in the orchestra. Piccolo is so unforgiving. And when you come in on a really high note and then it's not quite in tune, you want that adjustment to be like as fast as possible. The audience doesn't even notice. If you adjust fast enough, it's so fast that it sounded like it was in tune. So you definitely want to have that skill. You don't want to use that skill when you're tuning up to the tuning note because it doesn't help you. Again, we're tuning to the tuning note to just get the instruments in the best position. So learning how to use this skill, learning how to listen and tune by comparison improved my confidence big time because I could just tell, and I still can. I could just tell whether I'm flat or sharp, and I don't have that panic surrounding the tuning note anymore. So obviously lowered anxiety. This also just improves your intonation all around. Learning to internalize the pitch and compare, well, you're doing a form of that just to play in tune when you're actually playing in action all the time. So training your ear improves things across the board, not just a tuning note. This improves your flexibility for varied situations. And so flexibility, I just mean like resilience or ability to sort of handle situations that are not ideal. Maybe the piano, again, has been tuned recently, is very sharp. Maybe it hasn't been tuned at all. Maybe it's really cold in the hall that you're in. And so there's concern about coming to pitch because of the temperature. And maybe you're playing with other people whose intonation is like variable. That's pretty normal. Training your ear really, really, really improves your ability just to make the adjustments that you need to make. There's also a nice positive perspective shift that happens here, where we go from, tuning's this really difficult thing that I can't do, to tuning's a skill that I need to learn just like everything else. And now I know that it's the skill of listening, and I have to learn how to quiet my mind, and I have to learn how to just compare the notes, and it will get better over time. So in conclusion, again, tuning's a skill, happens in your brain, uses your ears. A busy mind is not able to hear the pitch. Leaving time and space to allow the skill to be used is critical. Don't rush your tuning note. Everybody's there to hear your solo, the recital, the orchestra. I think, when people play with piano, they especially feel like, I just got to get this done with. No. A minute on stage in front of an audience feels so long, but it's necessary. And we need to give ourselves enough time that we're actually allowing our brain to be quiet, internalize the pitch, think, and compare. Do that whole process. It happens faster than it feels. And then relying on a tuner, that's not skill building. It's like riding a bicycle with training wheels forever. You never really learn how to balance the bike, and you never really learn how to train your ears when you have that tuner within eyesight at all times. Tuning's not pass or fail. You just want to get close. The closer you get, easier it's going to be. And adjusting your pitch to match is an in-the-moment skill, not a tuning note skill. And lastly, a quiet mind is able to listen. If that's the only thing you remember from this video, that is the thing to remember. I just want to end by letting you know that Sarah and I have a private program that gives you the opportunity to work with us one-to-one. If you really want to transform your skills and think that this might be a fit for you, I would encourage you to check it out. There's a link to the practice formula below in the description.